They say we should have known better than to fall so deep down into this rabbit hole.
Get
we found.
ready. It's time again to venture down the rabbit hole into the world of cybersecurity. You're plugged into the podcast for security leaders and practitioners with a business sense. Prepare for unique interviews, insights, and practical advice that makes your job just a bit easier. And now, please welcome your guides on this adventure, James Jardine and the White Rabbit, Rafael Luz.
All right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome down the Security Rabbit Hole, folks. Welcome down to the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. This is episode 484. We're recording an interesting one for you guys. Typically, beginning of the year, we start off with try to get some current things going on, and this is no exception. I've got a gentleman with me that saw an interesting story on. During the holidays on fraud and payments. And so I thought, what better time of year than just after we've all finished taking our credit cards and phones out a million times to buy things, then to give you a little reality check of what probably happened in the background. I've got Timur with me, and he's going to talk. We're going to talk a little bit about payments. And I'm not quite sure what we're titling this episode yet. I think we'll discover that at the end of this conversation. But why don't you first introduce yourself? Give us 2 to 3 minutes background, who you are.
Yeah, hi, Rafael. Thanks. My name is Timur Yunusov. I'm a senior expert at Positive Technologies. And for the last 5 years, I was doing research in the area that really fascinates me, and this area is payment security, or everything related to payments. So before, I had like an AppSec background, and at some point of my career, I started doing security assessments of like mobile banking systems, online banking systems, and that really like fascinated me. You basically like in a swordfish movie. Yeah, hacking the bank, trying to steal money, but in the end you can get away with that. Yeah, so I really like to sleep very well. I don't want to cross the line. Always was on the white side of the hacking, and that's why this is the only way for me to feel this thrill and excitement of like simulating stealing money. Yeah, and ever since I decided to stay in this area of payments. Yeah, so obviously after a few years of hacking online banking systems, mobile banking systems, it's like it becomes quite boring. Yeah. Then we had amazing opportunity to jump into the ATM security.
Okay.
I was working there a few years, and after that, like also. Seems now obviously it seems like relevant and logical progression, but obviously by the times it was quite just a turn of events when I jumped into a project of simulating card fraud for a large bank.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since I decided to stay in this area related to fraud, related to card fraud, different security of card payments, mobile payments, and so on.
So there's been a good amount of talking done on this. I know I use my phone more and more at some of these mobile terminals using NFC, near field communication, to just sort of boop and go. You can also use your card now, right? But then you have to pull out your wallet, fiddle through there, carry multiple cards on your phone. It's interesting, I mean, as a side note, how much our phone is becoming the epicenter of our lives, but that beside the point. I remember when the original spec for Apple Pay came out, and this has been a couple of years. But the conversation I had with somebody at the time was, all right, so you're taking the you're taking the attack surface, right, rather from people hacking terminals individually, and now you're giving them the ability to just go, why don't we just go after that central thing and break that, right? The central payments collection, aggregation, forwarding platform. But you're actually researching out on the edges. Is that correct?
Yeah, basically it's the edge technology, everything that hackers as like normal customers can touch. That's interesting that you mentioned that, because I remember 2016, 2017, the time when
Yeah, it sounds
Apple
about
Pay
right.
came just on the market, and I went to a supermarket that was 10 minutes from my house, and holy shit, I forgot my card. I need to turn back, and I'm texting to my girlfriend by that time, and only halfway through I realized that I have the payment device in my hands
Right in your
all the
hand,
time.
right?
But by the
Yeah.
time I texted, my battery go down so badly that I still had to come back, because by that time the batteries was the massive problem of Apple phones. Where
Right.
now you can't imagine, I mean, I can leave the house without my card and I will feel completely comfortable because I know there is a solution that's going to help me, yeah. And yeah, that's why when Apple Pay just came in 2016, 2017, that was the first time when I decided to pay attention to that technology. And we had a research at Black Hat USA in 2017 about some vulnerabilities in Apple Pay. That was nice, but ever since I still had like this some like unsatisfied desire to get things done and really like get the final nail in the coffin of these technologies.
That sounds very. That sounds kind of apocalyptic. But let's start at the beginning of the conversation. So tell me a little bit about the research you did, and let's progress through sort of what you've uncovered as issues. Because the conversation we had earlier in the week to kind of set this up, it was really interesting for me because it wasn't some grand scheme to steal an entire bank at once or potentially empty your bank account in one transaction. It was different. So tell me about that.
So, as I said, we were doing research and work around hacking cards and contactless cards in the last 2 years. Yeah, and once the previous research was finished, I had this just Apple Pay presented transit scheme or transport scheme across the globe. What that means is that when before you always had to unlock your phone to make payments on Apple Pay, on Samsung Pay, now you were able to make payments without unlocking the phone. Yeah, just to pay on transport in tube, metro. Yeah, because it's a massively inconvenient for the customers back in the time to unlock the phone, yeah, and that's why Apple and Samsung decided so much money is at stake, because people spend like millions of dollars each month on transport systems, yeah, so they obviously decided, okay, we need to get a piece of this pie, and decided, okay, we need to allow people to be able to pay without unlocking the phone. And that's where I realized, okay, this might be a moment when actually I can badge in my knowledge and try to utilize this in a hacking way, yeah, be able to bypass somehow this. After years of this like experience in payments, I can see things, I would say, a little bit above and beyond what's going on. I really see like this might be the thing where the problem can lie. Like, I'm sure. Yeah, it's not like because I have like some psychic skills. Yeah, it's just because payment technologies were lying on legacy for dozens and dozens of years, and things that I was able to expect to see in Apple Pay, I knew that I saw before. I knew that I saw it in normal cards, in EMB cards, and in NFC cards, and I like, okay, this is probably how they're going to get things done, and they probably this where can they screw things up royally. And yeah, after a few months of this research, basically I confirmed my theory. So I was able to make payments on locked Samsung phone first, and then on Apple phones, basically without unlocking the phone. So as you can imagine, if someone lost their phone or the phones were stolen, it's a potential threat to utilize cards if they were ever set up on the payment systems. Yeah.
Okay, but that seems like, again, this feels like a conversation security has about twice a day, but this feels like a feature that was built for convenience. And I mean, I can't imagine the engineers that came up with this scheme said, yeah, you know what, this there's no security risk here. I'm sure they thought about it. So did they? I mean, I'm assuming it was locked to small transactions, or certain vendors, or no? You're shaking your head no.
So that's kind of mindset that you should have about like security, as you said, in general. Yeah, but in this situation, things is a little bit different. So first of all, yes, we are limited with technology that is called transit systems. Yeah, if you don't know what is transport card or transit card in your phone, even if you have Apple Pay set up, you don't need to worry about this whatsoever. Yeah, just forget about our today's session. Yeah, just close your tab and go and brew a cup of tea, and just everything will be great. But if you actually have a transport or transit card that's set up on your phone, Samsung Pay, Apple Pay, you are really in danger. Yeah. So I would say that Visa still doesn't fix any vulnerabilities, and they say, hey, we don't care about this whatsoever. That means if you have Visa card on your Apple Pay set up as transport card, literally anyone can use your phone, go to, I don't know, Ferrari store, and if you have 100,000 on your account, purchase a car. It's no limit, no thresholds whatsoever, because Apple's idea is the opposite. They say to every bank and to every merchant, we want to have no limits on our system whatsoever. We want our customers to be able to buy cars and houses, yeah, using our technology, because they get fee on that. Can you imagine?
That's true.
0.1% from $10, it's something, but 0.1% from 1 million is a big case. Yeah, it's a big case. Next, okay, we have engineers, engineers from Apple, from Samsung, who 5 years ago, 10 years ago, sit and say, hey, we need to create the secure way of paying, for our customers. And now they promote this as like the most secure form of payments. You can read it on the bank titles and advertising banners, that say, hey, set up your card on Apple Pay, because this is the most secure way you can spend your money. But after digging into this research a little bit, I realized that it's secure for them. They have created the most. I'm not saying that.
That doesn't surprise me.
To get back to the cash, you need to get. I'm not this kind of a guy, but let me just finish. Yeah, so they created an infrastructure where their responsibility and their liability for anything that will occur is absolutely zero. Yeah, because what Apple and Samsung does, they just take one piece of information and send it to another facility, and they do everything encrypted, and most of the times they say, hey, we don't know what's going on. And on their slides, in the first presentation in 2016, 2017, the CEO was standing behind the giant slide that said, Apple doesn't know what you buy. And this is what they're proud of. They possess no information about what's going on there. And that means that they have no power over these processes. So going further, what's going on is that Visa or MasterCard, they have their own system. So everything, why we are able to pay with mobile phone, with our watches, with our other smart gadgets, is called tokenization. Where a card that bank gave to you and that you enter in a mobile app or in other special application turns to a token, and from that moment your bank is not responsible for transactions anymore. All they're responsible for is just to check that you have enough balance, that your card was not blocked. That's essentially it. Yeah. And now the most important part that is responsible for every cryptographic features, doing every risk management assessment, all thresholds, is called the tokenization system. Yeah. So they belong to Visa or to MasterCard, depends on your card brand. I don't know, honestly, I don't know what's going on with other brands like American Express, for example, yeah? And what's going on is that Apple Pay or Samsung Pay or GPay sends this information to the tokenization service, yeah, or merchant in this case will send this information to tokenization service. Tokenization service does all the magic, cryptography, checking everything, and then they send just a final confirmation to your bank. Hey, does this account still real? Does they still have enough money on the account? Okay, they send like information. Okay, the payment was done, I don't know, in Aruba or in China. Yeah, you need to double check. Do you have like thresholds for your customers of like not leaving the country, yeah, or something like that? But bank simply does not have a lot of information that they have when you pay with your card. And you see, this is like the sharing of responsibilities, the sharing of these risks. And in the end, Apple will say to you, hey, buddy, if you lost your phone, this is your problem. We can't do anything with that. Yeah. And I just put this example very often. Yeah. I lost my own phone, and someone had taken my research or research of my colleagues from University of Birmingham, yeah, for example, and was able to buy something with my phone without my permission. Yeah, we will end up in a situation where I'm calling the bank saying, hey, this is a transaction I never committed. They will block the card. They will go into investigation. But shortly after, they have no data that will show that I, for example, did not enter the PIN code on the phone, that my PIN code was not on the back side of the phone stolen, for example. They have no information. All this information will stop on Visa or MasterCard. But this is not their money. They take fees from each transaction. Therefore, their desire is to make as many transactions annually as possible. Yeah, and who are responsible for the money in this case? Who are the victims? Yeah, is your bank and you. And obviously, when a small person tries to stand against a giant financial facility, I can't imagine that it can be very easy, and bank will say, okay, that was not you. Here's your money back.
Here's your money back.
Yeah.
What we've created is a system that, I mean, ironically, for the same reason, it's both excellent and bad, right? The fact that the vendors don't know what or that the transit doesn't know what you're buying.
It's good for privacy.
That's wonderful for privacy. But then the clearinghouse, the bank, right, where your money actually exists, doesn't actually know anything about your transaction other than it happened, and here's the merchant, here's the account number, and then here's how much, here's the card number, account number, and the amount, and that's it. There's no that's very interesting. So but this is specific to a certain type of transaction, you said, right? On transit cards?
Yeah. So the only one way to make payments on Samsung Pay or Apple Pay, is this transit mode. At the same time, Google Pay, GPay or Google Pay, they allow to make payments without unlocking the phone. So in this case, I would say that Google Pay is the weakest in this sense. Yeah, you allow you. How do you use this feature? Do you pay without unlocking your phone?
I don't think I've ever tried, because I've got and in fact, on my device, I try, every time I use GPay, and every time I go to pay, it says, oh, no, hold on, put your finger, you authenticate with your fingerprint. Even if I'm inside the app, if I open GPay and just tap, it says, no, wait, fingerprint, then try it. So I've got that feature turned on.
This feature appeared literally in May of last year, and I tracked. There is a page on help support.google.com, which explains how this feature works. Yeah, and I informed Google in January, and ever since I use Wayback Machine to track the history of this page. And eventually, in June, they added the page. They added new feature that says, yeah, from now on, you can disable payments on the locked phone. Yeah, but if you will ever enable it, you might be at risk. Yeah.
Well, that makes you wonder how many people don't know that exists. Because I was actually looking around in Google Pay. Because look, you and I are in the same industry, right? We see a feature, we're like, okay, let's go explore all the settings so I can see exactly how I can, get the most out of this. And my phone and all my accounts are set to, whatever the maximum mode of security is before it gets super annoying. But there's that level, right?
I'm doing the opposite. I'm starting what is the lowest way of security that still does not annoy me, and I'm still feel comfortable, and then I'm going to slowly increase until I will be pissed off.
Well, I think the average person is kind of where you are, but they're probably one level less, where they only turn on security features that, in fact, I wouldn't even say that. They probably don't turn security features on unless, unless it's on by default. And if it's on by default and it annoys them, then they quickly go turn it off.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
It's got to look. Security has this problem where we fight against the evil forces, right? Bad guys, bad girls. We fight against the evildoers of the world, the criminals. But we also have another layer to this, and that is that if we make things too complex, if we make them, as we just both said, too annoying, then those security features never get used, or that tool never gets used. It's like multi-factor authentication. If I have to authenticate every time I click a button, I'm turning it off. Right? I mean, and payments probably the same way. I mean, if I have to go...
Yeah, security is a byproduct. Unfortunately, it's a byproduct for IT, for the development, and you are absolutely right that in payments, it's 10 times worse. I don't know, it might be...
I just opened Google Pay and it says, put your fingerprint in, like right there. And it's immediate, and I'm like double checking all my settings. Thanks.
You don't need to worry about anything now. So it was like that in ICS 10 years ago. Yeah, security was a byproduct, and in payments now. So payment industry lives on as it's known risk-based approach, where special guys in white suits that earn a lot, six figures money a year, sit and say, hey, there is this guy, Mr. Yunusov, that explored this, and that. Let's sit and calculate. Well, they don't do this once I appear in the media. Yeah, they do this annually or regardless of my existence whatsoever. And sit and like, what is the price for us if someone will lose money using one of these techniques? Yeah.
So I found the setting. So it's under, if you're using Google Pay, you go into your settings, you go into security and privacy and security, and there's a feature called purchase authentication, and there's a switch that require authentication for purchases, for in-app purchases and other transactions made through Google Pay on this device. Meaning, I can't actually make a purchase without either my PIN, my password, my face unlock, or in my case, my fingerprint or something else. And I bet that as you said, I bet that's there. It wasn't there before. I bet that's there because somebody went, ooh, maybe we're making it too easy to commit fraud. Because, I mean, look, people lose their phones all the damn time.
Yeah. I mean, no, just Google said, hey, we will implement some security feature. I didn't know by the time what security feature they would implement, but that looks like the easiest solution. Yeah, they can't. The problem is that the software that sits on your Google phone, it was built and made by Visa or MasterCard, and they can't just go and randomly change lines of these APK, which called gpay.apk, yeah?
Yep.
It needs to be certified by Visa and by MasterCard. And for them, the only one quick and dirty solution here would be to shift all responsibility to the customer. And in this case, customer is you. You decide you want to put this toggle on or off. But the thing is that, okay, Visa and MasterCard say, or banks say, hey, how much money annually customers need to lose for us to scrutinize this process more, to add more toggles, to create more complexity to the process, yeah? And until they will not reach this threshold, they won't do a damn thing, yeah? But the problem is that for them, it's hundreds of millions of dollars or pounds, yeah? But for some person, for you, for me, if I will lose $1,000, I will be gutted.
Yeah, but so at least here in the U.S., and I can speak for in the U.S., almost every account I have, as far as I know, has like Discover Card, the Novus Network advertises this, Visa advertises this, all the banks have zero fraud liability. If you tell them, hey, this was fraudulently made, instantly gets reversed, you get your money back, and everything's good. Now, God, it's got to be about 10 years since podcast. It is maybe not 10, maybe like 7 or 8 years ago. Michael Santarcangelo, James, and I had this conversation on this show, and we were talking about fraud, and I asked the question, how much fraud is, because I used to work in the payments world for a bit. And the question I tended to give my project managers and my risk managers is, even back then, how much fraud are we okay with, right? And then the question became how much the digital fraud or card payment fraud, card present, card not present fraud is there in the world? And the answer is very simple. It's as much as the system will allow, right? Because if there's, like you said, if there's any more than X number, they put additional controls in. And if it's below some number, they're like, are we making it too hard? Are we doing too much? Because and no matter how big, and this is just the reality of the way the world works, when you talk about potentially hundreds of millions of dollars in, say, card not present or digital payments, right? Digital payments fraud. The reality is there's hundreds of trillions of dollars in total transactions. So it's a rounding error for a lot of these places. Yes, people lose money, but as long as the customer, i.e. me and you, get our money back and we have confidence in the system, and then we go right back to making transactions, right? Boop, 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 get on the train, buy your coffee, grab the paper, some of those people that still do that, right? Make it, you go to Starbucks and they hand you your coffee, boop, you walk away. You go to get on the train, you go to the turnstile, boop, you walk through. I mean, that's so much easier than having to fumble. How much money do I have? Can I put it in the... it's not taking my dollar bill. How do I get it in there, Chris? Like, it's just so much easier. The hassle is so much less. I will give you an extra dollar on every one of those transactions to not make me stand there while a crowd behind me is going, come on, we're late, let's go. And I can't help it. My dollar's not... Like, no.
Yeah, I'm a grown-up person, and I understand what you're talking about, and I absolutely understand the logic of these payments mammoths. However, there are still things they can tweak, but they are obviously scared that false positives will spike, and that will bring a lot of angry customers, and they will lose money. That's their main fear.
I think that's the bigger fear is once you have step one is getting adoption, right? Getting people to use the platform and getting people to trust it. Beyond that, the thing that kills these platforms more than anything is a personal experience of big loss that doesn't get recovered. Yeah. Right? And so they make it, that's why these payment platforms negotiate no fraud liability, all these things. And even like the big, look, you and I can talk about how making contactless payments with no authentication on a locked phone is a terrible idea. The reality is 98%, if you listen to, let this podcast play for 98% of the general audience on a train or standing in line somewhere, they'd be like,
So what?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect
Oh,
me.
yeah. Yeah.
And they continue, right? Fear doesn't doesn't impact them. Personal experience does. And listen, I think I'm kind of where you are. Is we technology makes our lives easier until the point that it doesn't, and then we back off a little bit. We look at, all right, how do I continue on this path of enabling digital technology while avoiding this ugly thing? Except it's not avoiding this whole ugly thing, it's shrinking the ugly thing to where it can still, people look at it and go, it's not so ugly, right? But that's security in general, and I'm glad we got a chance to have this conversation, because I now finally remembered that I have that feature enabled on my phone. And folks, if you're listening and you use GPay or Apple Pay or Samsung Pay, have you checked the have you tweaked the security settings on there? Have you looked? Have you had any fraud on there? Have you ever lost your phone? I'd be curious. I would love to talk to somebody that has lost their phone and then had like from, not you and I, but like just regular people that have lost their phone, that had transactions on their account. And what's that experience like, right? You ever wonder, like, what's that experience like?
Exactly. So even with zero liability, even if they will eventually get money, can you imagine how much stress that is? Yeah, like I was working very close to fraud for like last 5 years, and whenever I was never defrauded by anyone. No one ever withdrew money from me, but I was close a few times, and each time my blood pressure just raises, and I'm like, holy moly, what's going on? Yeah, it's a massive stress, and that was like 50 pounds top. Yeah, and if you will get withdrawal of 10,000 from your account, yeah, that will eventually get back to you. How much stress that is? Can you imagine?
Well, so I think I've told this story on the podcast before, but a long time ago, I used to work in a building that had a cafeteria that was run by a third party, right? And we'd go down for lunch almost every day because it's actually really good food and good service and all that. And one day, we went to we were going. I was thinking about buying a house, and I went and. That week I had been using my card, and I did the thing that most people do. You swipe your card. At the time it was swipe, and then you put your 4-digit PIN and you move on. Well, somehow those terminals had gotten compromised, and those PIN codes were being saved. So you want to talk about panic? I went to my bank, and as I'm taking out this cashier's check for down payment on something. They're like, which account do you want this from? Because you don't have that kind of money. I'm like, I'm sorry, what now? And it was north of $10,000. And immediately, like, I can feel my face getting flush. I'm just panic takes over. You're like, somebody literally just robbed me of 10 grand or whatever the number was, right? And I remember, luckily I'm sitting in the bank. So I'm like, okay, hold on. How did this happen? So we went through, and like that, I've never been to that part of the country. They're like, oh, that looks fraudulent. Let me go. So they got me on the phone with somebody. They walked me through, like, okay, which of these transactions doesn't look like yours? I'm like, these were all made near the airport, right? I've never been to that part of Atlanta. They're like, okay, let us flag these. We'll investigate. A day later, my money showed back up. And they were like, yeah, this must have been fraudulent, and somebody cloned your card. We've seen a number of cards recently in that location used fraudulently. We've launched an investigation, blah blah blah. But I tell you what, at the risk of, at the time, I was like, okay, I'm going to potentially not get this house, or get in on this offer. I'm out a lot of money because, many years ago that even now, 10 grand is a lot of money as a round number. And like all this stuff, like it drives you absolutely insane. But that kind of wear off quickly because, like, the money shows back up. They go, yes, it's fraud. We'll take care of you. Give us 24 hours, and we'll put the money back. We'll reverse those transactions. And don't panic, sir, we got you. And I'm going, okay, all's right with the world. I mean, 1 day delay, could be worse, right? But I don't want us to get complacent, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, this has been fun talking to you. I appreciate you sharing some insights with us. This is certainly interesting research, and at least if nothing else came out of this, I looked through my phone at security settings for my GPay. Thank you for that. That's a I'm glad for once I have the secure settings on something that I don't think a lot about, frankly.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Hey, what's next for you? What do you working on now?
We are working currently for about the education course for one university, and I'm bringing the ATM to the Canary Islands in February to show security of the ATM. We have a special ATM on wheels that is 500 kilo less than a regular one, so it's much easier to carry it through the. Are you
going to do like the Barnaby Jack thing where you're going to make it spit out dollars on stage?
Yeah, so
awesome.
Basically there are all these good old-fashioned style things. Yeah.
Of course there are. All right, I'm gonna want you back on the show to talk about that when that research is published. Timur, thanks for being on the show, folks. Thank you for listening. This has been another episode of the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Check those payment settings and be vigilant always. We'll talk to you another time, another place on another Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Ciao, you guys.
As we fade out on another Down the Security Rabbit Hole episode, we'd like to encourage you to chat with our hosts and guests using the Twitter hashtag #DtSR. Please check out the show notes, catch up on any episodes you may have missed, and subscribe so you don't miss a future episode. So on behalf of Rafal, James, for now it's goodbye. We'll see you soon on another Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast.